I'm going to call the member for Ballina.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As the elected Greens member for Ballina, and in line with New South Wales Greens' strong opposition to greyhound racing and its exploitation and cruelty, our concerns about gambling and the use of public money to support such practices and industries, I wish to voice my intention to collaborate with informed and experienced organisations like Animal Liberation and the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds to oppose a proposed development for a new greyhound racing track in the Tweed region. The greyhound industry cannot be reformed. It will never recover from the public exposures which clearly demonstrated the systemic and inherent cruelty entrenched in the industry. And Mr Speaker, the member for Tweed is someone who spoke out against the cruelty to animals in the greyhound industry. So it is not, this is not coming from the Nationals. This is coming from an outdated and out of touch small sector of the community. The greyhound industry has frequently been plagued with accusations of wrongdoing steeped in serious allegations of mismanagement, inappropriate distribution of TAB funds, widespread mistreatment of dogs, and allegations of race fixing, drug use, money laundering and alleged criminal activity. The catalyst for significant and wide-sweeping government scrutiny and change, as we know, was born out of the ABC Four Corners program Making a Killing in February of 2015. But Mr Speaker, what we have seen, and I've said in this place before, is that the community has moved in a different direction. And none of us, my grandparents liked to bet on the greyhound races. It was a very, very different world. And unfortunately, the economies of scale have meant, and more and more competition in the gambling space has meant that it is an industry that is deeply, deeply flawed. And the Greyhound Racing New South Wales are not showing any real genuine commitment to reform, certainly from the perspective of the North Coast. The industry is just simply no longer the mum and dad trainers. And even if we thought the proposed new tracks in the Tweed would represent a new era, a new style of racing, we would be sadly disappointed, because the actual design of the track is using the curved tracks, which we know cause more death and more injury. This is despite the fact that this is happening despite the fact that the independent study into optimal track design for greyhound racing conducted by the University of Technology strongly recommended that the industry move away from curved tracks. So I say to those proponents, why are you doing that? And we know that it comes down to profits before the welfare of their dogs, and that is a very, very sad state of affairs. The history of greyhound racing, as I say, Mr Speaker, in New South Wales provides a sobering reminder of a deeply entrenched culture and issues that cross animal cruelty, gambling, secrecy, and a real failure to turn an industry into the 21st century. In the current New South Wales climate of a heightened public concern, and we know that national surveys show how many Australians are deeply concerned about animal welfare, whether it's in the beef industry or in across a whole range of animal welfare issues. Your average Australian believes that animals are sentient beings, and the majority of Australians believe that, and the majority of Australians do not support any industry that involves the cruelty to animals. And it's time that in this state, the relevant minister and the Premier confirm just what is the future of greyhound racing in New South Wales. Mr Speaker, the greyhound racing industry and those who participate and profit from the exploitation of greyhounds through racing and breeding continue to commodify these dogs as commercial objects, and that is simply not in step with community. Their welfare is sacrificed, and people are very, very concerned, and it doesn't have a social licence. And I encourage the proponents in the Tweed to axe it now, because there is a very concerted campaign against this. The broader community does not support it. And together with my Greens colleagues and collaborating organisations, we will vigorously oppose the proposed Tweed Greyhound track, and we call on all compassionate members of both houses of our New South Wales Parliament to do likewise.
Thank the member for Ballina. I call